Today I return to the world of motorcycle clubs. In London in 1998, tensions were rising between the Hells Angels and the Outcasts, and a Rocky's reunion gig in Battersea brought these tensions to a head, with deadly results. Of the 1 million or so owners of motorbikes in England, only about 2,000 are members of outlaw motorcycle clubs, and about half of these belong to one of the big four: the Hells Angels, Satan's Slaves, the Outcasts and the Outlaws. The disputes between motorcycle clubs and the violence that can follow are pretty widely known, I think. And the source for the brutal violence we look at today began in June 1997, when the Outcasts absorbed a small Hertfordshire motorcycle club called the Lost Tribe. To motorcycle clubs, territory is vital, and the Hells Angels weren't happy about this attempt, as they saw it, of the Outcasts to increase their numbers in the UK, something they believed they were actively trying to do during the course of 1997. Although accurate details of what happened next and who said what to whom are difficult to authenticate due to the motorcycle club's code of secrecy, I will do my best from available sources to piece together what happened. The Hells Angels called a meeting to discuss the territory issue with the Outcasts and the Lost Tribe. Unhappy with the responses received at the meeting, the Hells Angels told the Outcasts that they would not accept groups of more than 4 outcasts riding across Hells Angels held territory. It wasn't long after this, at the end of 1997, that 22 outcasts left for the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. The Outcasts said openly they weren't too fussed about this, and they let it be known that one of their recent recruits had been power crazy and was frustrated that he couldn't immediately rise through the ranks with the Outcasts. They said that the others who had left were not of the quality they usually brought in and were too easily influenced by this one person, which is why they left in bulk. And in addition to this, they said that some of these people were swayed by the Hells Angels offering loans for new bikes, which is of course never a cheap purchase. You won't be surprised to know that the Hells Angels saw things very differently. They denied that they loaned money for bikes. It was simply the people leaving the Outcasts wanted to join a superior motorcycle club, with one leading member retorting, "We don't go looking for members. They come looking for us." Relations between the rival gangs had been relatively okay-ish, just about okay. But detectives believe that this changed after the British Hells Angels were warned by their US counterparts to combat the rise of rival clubs. So this instance about members and territory was significant, and it ratcheted the tension between the two groups, with each accusing the other of intimidation. Then on the 31st of January 1998, events came to a head at Battersea Arts Centre in South London. Violence seemed a long way away, as almost 2,000 people had fun and enjoyed themselves, drinking, dancing, laughing. It was a rockers' reunion gig, so there were all sorts of people there, and everyone was just having fun. Even the security guards, both members of the Outcast Motorcycle Club, were starting to relax and enjoy the music and feel the vibe. But then at around 9 p.m, everything changed. A security guard spotted a tall man in Hells Angels colours on the dance floor, though he wasn't dancing. The guard then saw a group of outcasts rushing along the corridor towards a side door. The guard looked back again towards the dance floor, where to his horror, he saw that at least 10 Hells Angels were now there, with the tall man clearly leading the group, and it appeared they were communicating via headset microphones. It was like a Western movie, he said. People parted to let him through. And whilst it was all starting to kick off inside, the real violence was happening outside the venue. Outcast member Keith Armstrong, or Flipper as he was known, was just arriving on his bike. Keith was from Belfast and an ex-soldier who lost a leg in a motorbike accident, hence the nickname Flipper. Accounts of what happened next are confused, but what is clear is that a number of Hells Angels attacked Keith with iron bars, coshes, and at least one knife as he dismounted his bike. Keith was also armed that evening, but there were so many Hells Angels surrounding him, it was almost impossible for him to be able to effectively fight back. He was stabbed 4 times in his abdomen, left leg, and his lungs were pierced as he fell to the ground. Another member of the Outcasts, Malcolm Sinclair, also known to his friends as Mal or the Terminator, saw what was happening. A huge man, Malcolm tried to help his friend, but he faced a devastating onslaught as he did so, and he was hit repeatedly with blunt instruments, probably the side of an axe or a hammer. Malcolm was armed with a knife and he tried his best to fight off his attackers, but he was cornered and stabbed 8 times in the chest, abdomen, back and hand. He managed to stumble to the post in Theatre Street, where he collapsed and died. He was just 35 years old. Tragically, later that evening, Keith Armstrong suffered a heart attack as a result of his injuries, and he too died in hospital later that night. Mal was a single man, whereas his friend Keith left a partner Sue and a son Scott. David Treherne, an Outcast, and Barry Hollingsworth, an ex-Outcast turned Hells Angel, were also wounded in the fight. The whole thing, said one witness, lasted just a couple of sets of traffic lights. Witnesses said that the Hells Angels had been calm during the executions as they described them, and seemed pleased with what they had done. One was heard to say, "I got him, I did him." The reputation of motorcycle clubs meant that Malcolm Sinclair's funeral had to be held in a Methodist chapel in Tooting, South London, after a number of churches closer to where he lived in Catford, scandalously, in my view, refused to allow it to take place on their premises. Shameful, isn't it? I wonder if you agree. And over 200 bikers paid their respects at Keith Armstrong's funeral in Manor Park Crematorium in East London. Keith was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, said his dad, Bob. Once the police knew that motorcycle clubs were involved in the violence, they knew the investigation was going to be a difficult one due to the attitude of motorcycle club members towards the police. Detectives appealed for witnesses, then for photographs and footage taken by camera or video on the night of the gig. Whereas a few outcasts and many members of the public gave statements, the Hells Angels said nothing at all. They always refuse to cooperate with police. Over the next month or so, there were a number of arrests and then what seemed to be a significant breakthrough. Police charged Hells Angels, Barry Hollingsworth, Raymond Woodward, and Ronald Waite with murder. 44-year-old Ronald Waite, known as Gut because of his size, was vice president of the Essex chapter of the Hells Angels, known as the Hatchet Crew. A witness told detectives they saw a man stab Malcolm, and after the stabbing that man had walked off calmly and driven away in a Volvo. This same man was also seen carrying an axe. The witness said he wrote down the number plate of the Volvo car, and Ronald Waite was arrested in that same car several days later in Thurrock in Essex. If you work for the police, it's probably best to skip the next minute or two. On this channel, we've seen many examples of amazing police work, we really have. But sadly, we've also seen plenty of inept detective work, and this case, unfortunately, falls in the latter category. The case against Hollingworth and Woodward was withdrawn after the police accidentally revealed the names of 2 protected witnesses to the solicitor for the defence. I know, it's staggering, isn't it? And so Hollingworth and Woodward, who were Hells Angels prospects at the time of the attack, were rewarded with full membership of the motorcycle club. And the 2 witnesses in question, an outcast and his wife, understandably refused to give evidence in court. So it was just 44-year-old Ronald Waite facing the jury. And in November 1998 at the Old Bailey, Ronald, a father of 2 from Dagenham in Essex, denied the charge of conspiring to cause grievous bodily harm. But he was found guilty and jailed for 15 years for his part in organising the attack on the Outcasts. Although the prosecution didn't proceed with a murder charge against him, the judge told Waite that he believed the men who had died had been ruthlessly executed. He said, You took an active part in conspiring to cause grievous bodily harm, a conspiracy which led to the death of 2 men. In truth, they were executed in a manner that was as ruthless as it was arrogant. But was justice really done here? With the police balls up, 2 key witnesses were unable to provide their evidence, which surely would have been absolutely key to getting the correct results for justice to be done. There are plenty of rumours still circulating that Ronald Waite was not responsible and was taking the can for others, his choice of course. But in this secretive world of honour and loyalty, which is so alien to most of us, and where the repercussions are a serious matter, even after all this time, people are unwilling to speak on the record, and frankly, it's not hard to understand why, is it? After the verdict, Keith Armstrong's dad said he hoped the violence between the 2 groups was now over. He said he wouldn't like to see anyone from any organisation go out and seek retribution on his behalf. Keith's girlfriend, Sue, said the former soldier had been a loving, extremely sociable, stubborn and determined man. She added, "I would like to think the Hells Angels had a sense of shame, but I suspect that is not the case. Now our son Scott will have to grow up without a father." Ronald Waite had a number of health issues, and he died in jail of a heart attack in 2001. And as I record this episode in October 2025, no one has ever been convicted of the murder of Malcolm St. Clair or Keith Armstrong. So there we have it. So many lives destroyed in just a short burst of violence at an otherwise happy event, as we hear so often on this channel. The legend who was Hunter Thompson once said, "The main reasons the Angels are such good copy is they are acting out the daydreams of millions of losers who don't wear any defined insignia and who don't know how to be outlaws." Motorcycle clubs split opinions so much, with some thinking they're just childish gangs who frankly have never left the playground. But I think in our increasingly confused world, it's easy to see the attraction of motorcycle clubs, which offer a chance for someone to really belong. Sonny Barger, the founder of Oakland, California chapter of the Hells Angels, once said, "In the Hells Angels we know who we are, what we are, and why we are." And as one member of the Outcast put it after the case we've heard today, the rest of life just doesn't really match up to this. It's hard to think of another life. What would you do? Go home and take up crochet? And Keith Armstrong's partner Sue also, I think, spoke to this at Keith's funeral, where she said, "They are a motley crew, but they were his motley crew." And here today we've just picked up one story of motorcycle club violence, almost out of context. There were plenty more before and since, and I've actually covered 2 others on this channel. So if you found this video of interest, why don't you go and watch one of those or one of my other videos? Until next time, I've been Adam Lloyd.